This is Richard Flax at Moneyfarm with our regular monthly update, recorded on May 26th. Over the past few weeks, we've continued to see a tug-of-war between optimism on corporate earnings and artificial intelligence and geopolitical uncertainty, with the Straits of Hormuz still largely closed and the oil price still sitting at around $100 per barrel. So far in May, optimism has won out, with equities continuing to rally. Tech has led the move higher as the Nasdaq has outperformed global equities. The tech supply chain has driven equity markets outside the US, particularly in emerging markets. It's interesting, though, that we've seen some volatility in Korea over the past couple of weeks. There were threats of strikes among tech workers looking for better pay, while the government also floated the idea of a windfall tax on some of the big tech companies that have been benefiting from the recent boom. Investors have largely taken that news in stride. The strikes were called off. But it's a reminder of the potential tension between shareholders, employees, and governments. Fixed income markets have been more muted, given concerns about inflation. Inflation figures have moved higher, although the latest release in the UK was a little better than feared. That probably made it easier for the Bank of England to keep rates unchanged at its latest policy meeting. Central bankers around the world have a difficult path to follow. Rising energy prices will feed through into higher prices overall. So should central bankers raise rates? The traditional playbook says no. Higher rates won't solve a shock to energy supply. But central bankers will be wary of seeing inflation accelerate too quickly. As always, a lot will depend on how soon the supply of oil improves. At this point, we're not expecting lower policy rates in 2026 in the UK, although we think we might be able to avoid rate hikes this year. Turning to geopolitics, it's tough to draw too many conclusions about the state of the Middle East conflict. There have been a number of announcements, but not much real change. If we look at current prices for things like oil, we think that investors are forecasting a deal to reopen the Straits of Hormuz, on terms that won't have too much of an impact on the global economy. Even in that scenario, it will likely take time for the supply of oil to normalize. So we think that households are likely to face higher energy prices for some months to come, but that equity investors might take that scenario in stride. What are the key numbers and key questions for this month? $28.5 trillion. That's the total addressable market that SpaceX, the rocket and satellite business founded by Elon Musk, believes it's focused on. SpaceX has recently filed to list as a public company, and investors are trying to value the business. It's always going to be tricky to value a business whose goal is interstellar travel. It might depend a lot on whether you think that 28.5 trillion figure is credible over an investable time horizon. At Moneyfarm, we don't invest in IPOs directly, but we are expecting to see some of those IPOs appear in ETFs over time. Nonetheless, we think that there'll be a number of large IPOs over the next few months, and we think that those will provide an important insight into investor sentiment. For now, strong earnings growth across equity markets have left investors fairly upbeat. Thanks for watching, and look forward to speaking with you again soon.